Hello and welcome to CYC News for the 28th of August 2016 and the 22nd of Mesra 17:32 am. I'm Anastasia Attia. In today's headlines, Egyptian church representatives gather to lobby for fairer church building laws in Egypt. Turkey sends tanks into Syria as part of its ongoing military campaign there. The US fires warning shots at an Iranian Navy vessel after a close encounter. The Rio Paralympics faces budget cuts and facility closures, and the US Surgeon General warns of a national opioid epidemic. In our lead story, the representatives of various Egyptian churches attended a meeting where politicians discussed the laws of church building in Egypt on Wednesday, August the 17th. The representatives of the church were surprised with unaccepted modifications and impractical additions, saying that such changes endanger Egyptian national unity. Representatives complained of the unnecessary complexity of the proposed laws for church building and the disregard these showed about the rights of Egypt's Christians. The project is still under discussion. On Tuesday, August the 23rd, His Holiness Pope Tawadros II received Mr. Jeff Fortenberry, a US congressman, at his papal headquarters in St. Mark's Cathedral, Cairo. In March this year, Mr. Fortenberry introduced a congressional resolution which demanded that ISIS crimes against Christians and other religious minorities in the Middle East be recognized as forms of genocide. It is believed that His Holiness discussed the plight of Egypt's Christians with the visiting congressman. In world news, the United States has fired warning shots at an Iranian Navy vessel after a close encounter. A US Navy patrol craft fired the 3 warning shots at an Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps boat on Wednesday after US officials said it had harassed their craft, according to CNN. Another US patrol craft and a Kuwaiti Navy ship were also harassed in the incident, which took place in the northern end of the Persian Gulf. At one point, the Iranian boat came within 200 yards of one of the US Navy boats. When it failed to leave the area after the Navy had fired flares and had a radio conversation with the Iranian crew, the US officials said the USS Squall fired 3 warning shots. Following standard maritime procedures, the Navy fired the 3 shots into the water to ensure the Iranians understood they needed to leave the immediate area. Donald Trump has found a corner of support among Israel's Americans, according to CNN. The Republican nominees' numbers are down in the national polls and in many crucial swing states like Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. But there is another locale, more than 5,000 miles away, that Republicans hope will tip the scales and determine the future of the United States. At a mall in Modin in central Israel, American-Israeli Republicans press the flesh. Red, white, and blue balloons flank a sign in Hebrew that appears similar to Trump's Make America Great Again logo, but it doesn't promise to restore America's greatness. It's the Israeli interest in resurrecting the close bond that has typified the US-Israel relationship, said Mark Zell, chairman of Republicans Overseas Israel. The whole Middle East has gone up in flames during this Obama administration. Relations between the United States and Israel have chilled under President Barack Obama's tenure. In one particularly tense episode, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu openly defied Obama in March 2015 by addressing the US Congress. He urged lawmakers to torpedo the president's nuclear deal with Iran. Registered Florida voter Deborah Gruffy believes Trump will heal the rift. I don't think the Obama administration has been fair to Israel and hasn't been friendly, she said. Donald Trump has Israel's best interest in hand. I think he wants the country to be at peace. Republicans believe that if they get enough Israeli votes, they could influence tightly contested swing states. In 2000, George W. Bush won Florida and the presidency with only 537 votes. Israel has 200,000 eligible American voters, according to the non-partisan organization I Vote Israel, which registers American Israelis to vote. The State Department estimates that there are 9 million US citizens living abroad, but couldn't provide numbers of voters from different countries. Last election, Republican Mitt Romney won 85% of the vote in Israel. We do have an influence, Zell said. Every vote that we sign up here could make a difference in the history of the world. But influencing the election in the United States will be difficult. The most recent CNN poll of polls showed Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton leading Trump by an average of 10 points. Vladimir Putin has said that the International Paralympic Committee has humiliated itself with its Russian Paralympic ban decision. The International Paralympic Committee, IPC, has brought humiliation on itself by opting to ban Russia from participating in the 2016 Paralympic Games, according to the country's president. The IPC imposed a suspension this month due to alleged widespread state-sponsored violations of international doping rules. Russia immediately appeared against the ban on its Paralympic athletes competing in Rio de Janeiro this month. But the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, upheld the IPC's decision. I feel sorry for those who make such decisions, as they cannot but understand that they are humiliating themselves, Putin said at an event in Moscow Thursday, according to Russia's state-run TASS news agency. The decision to suspend our Paralympians is beyond all boundaries of legal norms, moral principles and humanity. This is simply cynical to work frustration off on those who see sport as their sense to live, those who inspire with hope and belief millions of people with limited physical abilities, Mr. Putin said. Also in Europe, the former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has announced that he plans to run again in 2017. The 61-year-old broke the news on his official Twitter account as he tweeted an excerpt from his forthcoming book, Tout pour la France, All for France. I decided to run for the 2017 presidential election. France demands that we give her everything. I felt I had the strength to lead this battle during this troubled time of our history, the excerpt reads. France has been under a state of emergency since the Paris terror attacks in November, when an ISIS cell killed 130 in the French capital last month. Another ISIS attacker drove his lorry through his crowds of people celebrating Bastille Day in Nice, killing more than 80. Sarkozy, leader of the centre-right Republican Party, was president from 2007 to 2012, when he was defeated by France's current president François Hollande of the centre-left Socialist Party. To the Middle East now, where Turkey has sent tanks into Syria. Turkish tanks entered northern Syria on Wednesday to help Syrian rebels clear ISIS from a border town, Turkish state media reported. A move that follows recent attacks that the Republic blames on terror groups. By Wednesday evening, the Ankara-backed Free Syrian Army had captured the town Jarablus, which is less than a kilometre from Turkey and the last major community ISIS had held on the Syrian-Turkish border, Turkey's semi-official Anadolu agency reported. Turkey's incursion into Syrian territory is part of a larger effort to battle not only ISIS, but also Kurdish fighters in northern Syria that Ankara opposes, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said. Wednesday's operation started in the north of Syria against terror groups which constantly threaten our country, like ISIS and the PID, Erdogan said, referring to a Syrian Kurdish opposition political party. Pictures distributed by Agence France Presse showed tanks rolling near the border Wednesday, west of Jarablus. Turkish special forces units also were operating along the border, CNN Turk reported. In sports news now, Russia is counting the medal cost of its doping indiscretions. For every Russian gold medalist in Rio, Vladimir Putin penned a personalized note published on the Kremlin's website. Boxing gold medalist Evgeny Tishchenko was greeted out of the ring with his sentiment, "You have proven to be a true champion by nature and to possess a high level of skill. These qualities alongside confidence in your abilities add to your Olympic success." During the course of 2.5 weeks, the Russian premier penned more than a dozen such valedictories, but a question mark remains how many more that might have been were it not for bans on many of Tishchenko's countrymen and women from competing in Rio. A total of 67 track and field athletes were prohibited from competing under the blanket ban by athletics governing body, the IAAF, for alleged systematic doping, the one exception being Darya Kilshina, who was eventually given the all-clear to compete in the long jump. At the previous Olympiad in London 2012, athletics accounted for 8 of the entire Russian contingent's gold medal haul of 24, with a further 5 silvers, 26 in total, and 5 bronze, 32 medals. Potential medal winners who were barred in Rio could have been Sergei Shubikov, the current world champion for the 110-meter hurdles, and Yelena Isinbayeva, who insisted she was returning to her best form in the pole vault competition. In addition, the 2 meters Maria Kuchina jumped near Moscow last month would have been sufficient for high jump gold in Rio. Isinbayeva argued she had done nothing wrong. Track and field is about individuals, she told CNN in June. We are not a team sport. Every athlete is responsible for themselves, for their behaviour, for their deeds. So why should I be responsible for the mistakes of others? How can you consider everyone is dirty? From my side, this is a big mistake. Shubikov, meanwhile, believes he was denied a legitimate chance to add an Olympic gold to his world title. People who have been taking drugs anywhere should have been punished, and I should have no tolerance for them. But today, I am punished and I am a clean athlete, he told the BBC. No one cares that my career is going to be ruined. The Rio Paralympics is facing budget cuts and facility closures. The 2016 Paralympics in Rio is facing unparalleled challenges, budget cuts and the unexposed closure of facilities, but will go ahead as planned, the International Paralympic Committee said Friday. Reporters earlier this week revealed that the September 7 to 18 event was suffering from major crash shortfalls due to woeful ticket sales and lack of sponsors. Now it has been confirmed the workforce which has been in place over the past 2 weeks of Olympic action in Rio will be reduced for the Paralympics in an attempt to cut costs, while a number of media centres will be closed. The wheelchair fencing event will also be moved to the Barra Olympic Park, so the Deodora Park, where it was originally due to be held, can begin to be dismantled. The IPC hopes travel grants, which had been due in July, will be paid, but it is feared some nations may struggle to make it to Rio. In health news now, where the US Surgeon General has sent a warning letter to all doctors on a so-called opioid epidemic. It's the first time that America's top doctor has reached out to all physicians. But Dr. Vivek Murthy has an urgent reason Americans are dying each year by the tens of thousands from overdoses of prescription painkillers such as OxyContin and Viocidin. I am asking for your help to solve an urgent health crisis facing America, the opioid epidemic, Murthy wrote. In his letter, Murthy told physicians he understood their desire to keep their patients out of pain. It is important to recognize that we arrived at this place on a path paved with good intentions, he wrote. But those good intentions have gone horribly wrong. From 1999 to 2014, more than 165,000 people in the United States died from overdoses relating to opioid pain medications, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. While some of those brought their drugs on the streets, many did not. In 2012, healthcare providers wrote 259 million prescriptions for opioid pain medication, enough for every adult in the United States to have a bottle of pills, according to the CDC. The results have been devastating, Murthy wrote to the doctors as well as nurse practitioners and dentists who also prescribe drugs. Research has shown that opioid dependence has caused a 3,000% rise in US medical services. In one of the first looks at privately insured patients with opioid problems, researchers paint a grim picture. Medical services for people with opioid dependence diagnosis skyrocketed more than 3,000% between 2007 and 2014. The study considers a huge cohort of people who have either job-based insurance or buy coverage on their own. Its findings illustrate that the opioid problem is in general the mainstream, said Robin Gilbert, president of Fair Health, a non-profit data bank corporation focused on healthcare costs and transparency and insurance information. Is the health system preparing for this tsunami of services, she said? The researchers used de-identified claims data from insurers representing 150 million patients looking for diagnosis codes related to opioid dependency and abuse, adverse effects of heroin use, and problems caused by the misuse or abuse of other types of opiates. While heroin is a street drug, other opiates are often prescription medications. They found that much of the increase in opioid dependence occurred since 2011, a period marked by increased attention to the problem and a growing drumbeat by advocates calling on doctors to reduce the number of opioid prescriptions. Younger patients 19 to 35 were most likely to be diagnosed as opioid dependent compared to other age groups. Dependence is defined by symptoms such as increased tolerance, withdrawal, or unsuccessful attempts to quit. Those younger patients were also more likely than older ones to overdose on heroin. The reverse was true, however, for overdoses related to other types of opioids. People in their mid-40s to mid-50s were more likely to suffer this consequence. And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm Anastasia Attia from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. Good night and God bless.